Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun with our new Only Murders in the Building Season 4 theory video. This one is really fun. This one we have spent days on end kind of talking about and trying to figure out, did the Westie Besties, as Jess has coined them, did they kill Dudenoff? Is Dudenoff dead because of the Westie Besties?
I think he's dead. I've been saying that for a while now.
Mhm.
I don't think that he is with us anymore. He is definitely not in Portugal, living like a king on a professor's salary while still having all these apartments back in New York. It's not a thing. Something is really off with this whole thing. But yeah, the biggest question is, did they kill Dudenoff or did they find Dudenoff dead and then we're like, oh no, we're going to lose our apartment, so let's do something about it. But before we get into all that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We have Only Murders in the Building videos for you 3 times a week. Every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., you're going to have our review. We're going to have a preview later that same Tuesday. And every Wednesday, you're here for our theory
Mhm.
videos, which is what you're here with us today. So if you hit that subscribe button, it helps actually support us here at the
Mhm.
channel. It really means a lot to us. We're also covering Slow Horses and we're covering The Old Man if you're looking for other mystery thrillers that are on right now. And so far, those seasons are really fun.
One more thing that's coming up this weekend. From on MGM Plus, one of our favorite horror thriller shows
So good.
is back. We are so back. We're so looking forward to talking about that. And if you guys do want to support us even more, be sure to join our Patreon. We have a link in the description below. For just $5 a month over there, you can vote in polls, help us figure out what videos and shows to cover exclusively on Patreon down the road. We are also covering exclusively on
Mhm.
Patreon The Penguin,
Yeah.
which is one that we are both really, really excited about. So thank you to all of our
Thank you.
patrons for your support. That means a lot to us.
Okay, so let's start with the Westie Besties, where we
Mhm.
saw them in Dudenoff's apartment doing some shady stuff. They have this compartment that was behind the bed where they have all these documents, and they claimed, and I believe part of their story, that Dudenoff had these apartments that were these rent controlled apartments, and he decided that he was going to sublet them, which is, shady. You can't really do that to these guys, the Westie Besties. And so they're paying $200 a month for these apartments. And, maybe they are, and that's fine. But they're like, okay, we're going to cut in Mabel, hey, if you want this apartment or you want one of these apartments, you can do that for $200 a month. Where I still have to be kind of like, what did she ask for money wise from Bev Mellon that she still can't afford an apartment anywhere? And that $200 is the best that she can do. I was just like, okay, stop. But, anyways, they have these apartments that belong to somebody else that he is leasing all of them, Dudenoff. So, my biggest question is, where is Dudenoff and is he alive? And I feel like the answer is he's dead. He is not in Portugal living like a king. He is not going to continue to keep these rent controlled apartments and then, sublet them for $200 a month. Like, what is the purpose of this? He's not really going to be making any money off of it. It seems like more of a hassle than anything else to really be dealing with that if he's living like a king.
This is all really, really complicated, but I think that's also why it's really, really interesting. Let's start here by going to his profession. As you've noted, he's a professor. This is not somebody who should have king-like money. I even tried to do a deep dive on this. I was like, okay, what if he's a professor who publishes a lot of books and maybe he makes some, but
Oh my
that's
God, it's only his students that are buying
I
them.
know. That's why I we've all been there. We've all been in these classes where we end up having to buy our professor's books. But that is such a stretch that I just don't believe it. And where I've sort of landed on this for past week or so is just that I think Dudenoff is like an organization. I'm not
Mhm,
even altogether sure that Dudenoff exists. They may
mhm.
just have like a person who is like the quote unquote cover for all of it. And what might be going on here ultimately is that the Dudenoff apartment is just the place where shady things happen. And there's a lot of shady things that happen there. And maybe as a part of this arrangement, all of the Westie besties, they have access to this place. He's letting them all live on this floor, mostly because he doesn't want it to look weird that there's just, this shady apartment there and nobody's living on this floor or whatever. So he's trying to come up with this cover where it looks pretty normal. He wants to have a bunch of strange people living there so that nobody asks too many questions. Everybody just leaves them alone.
Yeah.
And because these people are all only paying $200, I don't think they all really know the full extent of what's going on here. I just think they're probably like, sweet, I get to stay in New York City for $200, no questions asked. I'll sign me up. And he probably even has these little agreements in the Dudenoff apartment, probably to make these people think that they have a certain sense of power or control, when really he probably has something over all of them, because they kind of said that Professor Dudenoff has met up with these people at some point in their lives, and that's how they've all kind of ended up there. I don't think that's a coincidence. Dudenoff, or the Dudenoff organization representative, probably like studied some people and figured out some good candidates to live there, and probably had some dirt on them that they don't even know about. Like, I think this is all very carefully planned.
Okay, this is tinfoil hats on. This
All right.
is where I think we are. I do not think that the Westie Besties killed Dudenoff, but I think there was a third death on the show, or there will be possibly three deaths. There's going to be, obviously, there's Saz, I think there's Dudenoff, and then Charles is the third target. Will he get killed? Probably not, but he would be the third person. I think there's three people. We saw that there was like the murder board for the two people where it's Charles and Saz. I think there's also Dudenoff. Do I think that they killed him? No, I don't think that it makes any sense. I think that the part of the story of, oh, Dudenoff gave us these apartments, he's not supposed to be doing that, but he did, and we're here for $200 a month. True. I think that that's true. I think that they walked in and found Dudenoff dead and were like, oh no, we're going to lose our apartments.
Yeah.
If this guy's dead, someone else will end up getting these leases and we're going to end up gone. What do we do about it? We're going to have to get rid of this body, whether they fed it to the pig, threw it overboard, threw it in the incinerator, like whatever is happening here. They got rid of the body.
Yeah.
That's why they have all the documents. And they are pretending that he's still alive. They're not doing like a Weekend at Bernie's where they're like, here's this body or whatever. I think they got rid of it. And I think everyone was a part of it, including Helga. And that's why Rudy is like, oh yeah, we broke up. She's crazy. I think that she was there as well at that time that they found him. And everyone was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan. We're going to get rid of the body. We're going to pretend that he's still alive and we're all going to keep our apartments. Okay, cool. Everybody put your hands in. And Helga was like, no. This is not okay. I don't want to participate in this. I'm out on this. And Rudy and her broke up and she left. And that's why they have this picture of all of them. And there's a blonde person who's got their face scratched out holding a pig. We heard Helga on the radio with a pig. Helga's the person in the photo. Helga's the person that kind of warned them to be like, hey guys, like, stop poking around. Things happen when you poke around. And she knows that they, while they may not have killed Dudenoff, what they did, or what I think they did, is not okay either. It's also bad. So that's what I think is happening. I think Helga knows what they did. They disposed of the body and they're just like, hey, Dudenoff's off living like a king.
Let's all have a nice big Helga conversation, which, by the way, shout out to all of my fellow 90s childhood people who just think Helga Pataki from Hey Arnold when they mention the word Helga, which, by the way, Pataki. Also, is Helga Pataki a secret Saz Pataki relative? Let me know in the comments if you like 90s cartoons. No, okay. I really think that Helga's an interesting character in all of this, because I do agree with you that I think that's Helga in the picture. Like, there's somebody's holding the pig. We heard on the ham radio, another pig pun here, that there's another pig that Helga has,
Yep.
an animal has to trust the person that's holding it, otherwise there's no way they're going to hold it for long enough to take a picture. Like, we have tried the whole Coco Vanderwolf and Harley and Fifi and
Oh my goodness, rabbits, they're just like that as well. I have a rabbit named Miss Fifi Fontaine,
yeah.
and rabbits are prey animals. So to actually get them to trust you where they'll actually let you hold them is a long
Mhm.
process. And even when they finally get around to it, they still don't like it. But they'll put up with it.
Okay, I'm going to get a little bit crazy here. I'm
Okay.
going to say that I think that Helga may very well be the killer, not the big bad, not the person who's
Oh God, I
responsible
hope
for all of
not.
this. I'm not saying that this is necessarily what I want, but I think I could see the show going in this direction where Helga is sort of the quote unquote person who is, maybe they're a part of the Dudenoff organization,
Hmm.
maybe they
Hmm.
are just a independent contractor, but I think they are the person who was hired by whoever, the real big bad of this show was to take out Charles, aka Saz.
Yeah.
So here's how it all went about here. We're in this situation where they needed access to that apartment. Clearly, they needed access to a place where they could commit this heinous act.
Hmm.
So Helga goes undercover, pretends to get close to Rudy, who is vulnerable, who wants some attention for
Hmm.
something that's not Christmas. And so they form this relationship. She gets access to him so that ultimately she can get closer to this apartment so she can figure out how to get in there. Once
Hmm.
she gets all that information together, she doesn't need him anymore. And then she can break up with him. I also kind of wonder, because we don't really get the sense as like, okay, who got all these people into the ham radios? How long have they been doing it? Like, was this Helga from the get-go, and Helga was sort of using this to kind of keep tabs on where everybody was and what they were doing so that she could kind of navigate in and out? Because, Rudy makes this real point of, oh, she's still listening on a ham radio. Yeah,
Right.
she might be doing that because she wants to know what you're doing at just about every single second of the day. And he may be just playing this whole, oh, Helga's crazy bit after the fact because he's upset that he got heartbroken. He might not know the full truth, obviously, about who she really is and
Hmm.
what she may be doing. But I think it's easier to just sort of say that than admit to some sort of other possibility. Like, I don't think Helga is crazy. Like, I think if Helga is the person who took out Saz, regardless of whether or not she thought it was Saz, I think she did that because that was her job. It was her job to get close to Rudy. It was her job to fulfill all of this different stuff. I think
Hmm.
the whole
Hmm.
crazy part of it, it's just a projection. It's just a smokescreen. It's just, there's clearly way more going on here with Helga because she was so specific in her message to the trio. This is not random.
Yeah, she was very specific and it felt like a warning. And that for me, if I believe what she's saying, that's what it feels like to me, that she knows what they've done
Mhm.
and she doesn't want to be part of it,
Yeah.
and that's why she's got her face scratched out. She's betrayed them for keeping their apartments and keeping their secret that Dudenoff is gone and that they've disposed of him. Like, I think the organization
Mhm.
theory is a solid one. I think that it makes a lot of sense, and that she could be using them to be able to get to the apartment, to be able to get the vantage point she needed. But I
Mhm.
really am stuck on this idea that they Dudenoff is dead, that they had something to do with getting rid of the body, and she was just like, I am not participating in this. And Rudy's like, she's crazy. So to try to keep Mabel away from Helga, because Helga will then be like, oh, I'm crazy. Do you know what they did to Dudenoff? Do you know what they're doing over there? Oh my God.
It's okay. It's funny you mentioned earlier that okay, there's so many different murder victims or people who are dead this season because
Yeah.
I I think Helga's gonna die, and I think Helga's gonna die pretty soon at this point. Like I said in a previous video, that like whoever was hired to take out Charles is going to get killed before they can give any answers, and so I think that's going to happen to Helga. And I think
Yeah.
it's going to happen to Helga sooner rather than later because they need to sort of preserve the mystery as long as they can. If they're willing to just give Paul Rudd 10 to 15 minutes of random airtime that doesn't really contribute to much, like they're clearly trying to draw out this storyline for as long as they possibly can. So
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen here is they're going to find Helga, and really, as weird as it may sound, like regardless of if it's what you've said or what I've said, either
Mhm.
way,
Mhm.
somebody has an incentive to want to take Helga out at this point because she has a lot of information. And, clearly the Westie besties, they have a great reason to not want to talk about this stuff because they want to keep their cheap apartments. And who knows if they'd be
Yes.
able to afford them otherwise.
That's the thing about the Westie besties. I do not think they are behind Saz. I do not think that if Charles was a target, they're behind Charles. I think their entire motivation is to keep $200 apartments
Yeah.
in New York City. I mean, that's a pretty big motivation that they're going to end up having no place to live. It is extremely expensive
Yes.
to rent there. It's even more expensive to buy there. The idea of, if you get a rent controlled apartment in New York City, you hold on to it till you're dead. There's no way you're letting it go. So I think the big mystery around Dudenoff is, with these Westie besties keeping their apartment.
Yeah, I don't think that this is much more complicated than that. Like, yeah, I think there's a lot of red herrings in all of this in general, but there's going to be some sort of clue that comes out of all this that gets us just that little bit closer to the answers we so crave. But before we wrap this up here, there's one. We got another breaking emergency theory here that
Oh, boop, 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 boop,
thank you,
boop,
thank
boop,
you.
boop, boop.
Breaking news. No, this is something I kind of came up with over the course of this because early on in this video, you mentioned, what did Mabel ask for in getting this deal for her life rights?
Yeah.
And the show hasn't ever brought it up. I admittedly, to be honest, I hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about it. Here's what I think she might have asked for is just that there's some sort of financial compensation for those who were affected emotionally by everything that has happened over these past. Because I think it's a
Oh.
sweet thing, but also we have to remember that emotionally, there's a lot of people who have suffered because of what's going on here. And the podcast, the movie, I don't want they're
And including Tim. I mean, Tim is somebody that was really important to Mabel.
yeah, like movies make a lot of money, a lot more than podcasts. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
But all right, that's what we got here when it comes to our Only Murders in the Building theory video about Dudenoff and what's going on here. But
Yep.
before we go forward, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything else. 3 Only Murders videos a week. Also, support us further by joining our Patreon. We've got a link in the description below where we have the Penguin exclusively every week. And thank you to our patrons for your support.
Thank you.
We'll see you here next time.